Week 15 was supposed to be relatively uneventful, but in typical 2020 fashion, that proved not to be the case. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, breaking down a wild weekend in college football, a wild Week 15 in college football, sharing how we did on our predictions, but also sharing some of the biggest moments, the biggest games, and all the upsets and scares that we saw from Thursday through Saturday. And you know, this was a surprising weekend, guys, and what's so crazy about that is it was a surprising weekend without some of the bigger games on deck. You look at all of the games that were canceled or postponed throughout the week, and just to name a few, the game between Michigan and Ohio State, while it probably would have been a rout, Ohio State dominating Michigan, that's a historic rivalry game that we hate to miss. Hate that that game was unable to be played. That game did not happen, and in doing so, the Big Ten changed their rules magically, so Ohio State would be able to go play in the Big Ten championship game. Oklahoma, West Virginia, a good Big 12 showdown. Oklahoma's offense, West Virginia's defense, unable to be played. Purdue, Indiana, a great rivalry matchup, unable to be played. Cincinnati, Tulsa, a ranked versus ranked matchup, huge for the Bearcats' playoff hopes. That game could not be played. They will now meet for one time only in the American Athletic Conference championship game next week. And then Washington, Oregon, unable to be played. That game was going to decide who won the Pac-12 North, but by default, Washington has now won the division because they had one conference loss. Oregon had two. And yes, we know that Oregon-Washington is in our thumbnail for this video. We made that thumbnail a long time ago, well before that game was canceled. Then our system crashed naturally, and so we had to keep it as it was. But that game was going to be a big one we were looking forward to, one that was going to play a major role in how the Pac-12 shaped out this year. And now Washington just won it by default. Washington, USC, and the Pac-12 championship. So those 5 games weren't even able to be played, and yet Week 15 was still great. Just shows you how crazy 2020 has been and how crazy Week 15 was. So let's go ahead and look at our Week 15 predictions recap. Then we'll break down the action. We're going to go through a little bit quicker today. So up here at the top, 18-5 on the money line. 18-5 straight up. Another solid week. Really can't complain. 78.3%. Brings our overall to 242-70 on the year. 77.6% on the year. Again, still on track to be the best record we have ever had. Best percentage record we've ever had at the Gridiron Expert. Always shooting to be 76%. We're 1.6% above that right now. And fingers crossed we'll hit 250 wins by the end of next weekend. So a great season so far. Straight up. Still a very solid weekend against the spread. 5-5, breaking even. Wish it had been a little bit better. Had a couple close calls, or I should rather say teams that blew their leads. But 5-5, breaking even. They're right at 500. 75-65 on the year. 53.6%. We promised you we would finish at 53% or better. Staying true to our word. Conference championship weekend and bowl season coming along. I can still guarantee that. One of the best marks in the country, and we will finish at that by season's end. So we're really looking forward to it. 5-5 this weekend. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're dealing with in Week 15. I want to briefly touch on what happened Thursday night. Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh. Not the game itself, but the fact that Geoff Collins stiffed Pat Narduzzi in the post-game handshake, the post-game meeting at midfield. Geoff Collins comes up there, slaps the hand, didn't look, walked away, leaving Pat Narduzzi and Pittsburgh in disbelief after their 34-20 win over the Yellow Jackets. A very classless act, I would say, by Geoff Collins. You know, our coaches, I get you get frustrated, you're angry, not happy, but we're supposed to set examples for our players and for our fans. And I don't care what was going through Geoff Collins' mind at that point. That's just unacceptable. That's childish, really. So that was kind of the major storyline coming out of that game. Kind of overshadowed the fact that Vincent Davis for Pittsburgh had 247 yards and a touchdown on just 25 carries in that game against the Yellow Jackets. So Geoff Collins in the handshake, the big storyline there, but don't sleep on Vincent Davis. Great win for Pittsburgh, but the Panthers choosing not to go bowling this year. They do have 6 wins, even though there's no win requirement for the postseason this year, but the Panthers choosing to stay home alongside Boston College, and those two teams of the ACC will not be the last that choose to opt out of the postseason. So major storylines you want to watch over these next few weeks. Moving on to Friday night. How about this? Tons of coaching changes already. Blake Anderson of Arkansas State off to Utah State. Arkansas State now hiring Butch Jones. Well, we got a big coaching change out in the Pac-12 because Arizona State beat the brakes off of their rival in Arizona, 70-7, and ultimately cost Kevin Sumlin his job with the Arizona Wildcats. We knew it was coming. It was going to happen regardless. I think even if you had beat Arizona State, Kevin Sumlin would have been gone by season's end. But losing 70-7, committing 7 turnovers to your in-state rival, never going to help your case. But unbelievable performance from Herm Edwards and his defense. We talk so much about Jaden Daniels and the Arizona State offense, which played well in this game. Don't get me wrong, but the defense, 7 turnovers, wreaked havoc in the backfield all game long. 63-point victory, their first victory of the year. Can't ask for anything better than that. So Kevin Sumlin out of Arizona. Going to be interesting to see who takes over for the Wildcats. Paul Rhodes, though, serving as interim for the remainder of the year. And our final point on Friday night, out in the Mountain West real quick, San Jose State. The San Jose State Spartans, a team that has struggled for the past really 2 decades. Abysmal, especially in this decade, 2010 to 2020. Abysmal, just beat Nevada, 30-20. They outscored the Wolfpack 23-0, shut them out in the second half. They were down 20-7 at halftime, won 30-20. It's their best start, undefeated, since 1939, and they are going to the Mountain West Championship game for the first time in program history. So how about that? We love the Group of 5. We love to talk Group of 5 football here. I know the Power 5 sometimes overshadows that, but you can't disregard and you can't not talk about a moment like that. An unbelievable one for Brent Brennan and his Spartans program. One, again, that has struggled for so long and are now 1 win away from winning the Mountain West. And I think they can very well do it. This team is legit, very, very sound, and an unbelievable job out west for the Spartans. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and touch on Saturday's action. A handful of games I do want to touch on here. Briefly just overshadow. Alabama, Georgia, 2 ranked teams taking care of easy business. Alabama beating Arkansas 52-3, holding the Razorbacks to 188 yards. Perfect tune-up game for the SEC Championship next week. Georgia, in their ranked versus ranked matchup against Missouri, who cracked the top 25 last week, the Bulldogs won 49-14. They were tied at 14 late in the second, shut out the Tigers after that, and held Missouri to just 200 total yards on the year. You can't help but wonder if Georgia had found their quarterback in JT Daniels and were playing like this from the start of the season to now, where could they be? Probably right in the thick of college football playoff discussion and probably meeting Alabama next week in the SEC Championship. It's a little too late. Kirby Smart waiting a little bit too long to pull the trigger and giving JT Daniels the start. But nonetheless, 2 great teams in the SEC, 2 top 10 teams taking care of business. But I want to stick over in the Pac-12, where the first big game you want to talk about, Utah upsetting number 21 Colorado, ending the Buffalo's dreams and hopes of making the Pac-12 championship game. It's been a dream season, short one, but a dream season for Colorado so far, and they look poised to finish the year undefeated. They're up 21-10 early in the third quarter. Literally the first play of the second half, Colorado had a touchdown. They scored 21-10. They were up 21-10 right there at the beginning of the third quarter. After that, Utah scored 28 unanswered points to win 38-21. 38-21 victory for the Utes. That's impressive. At Colorado, in the snow, that was extremely impressive. And one of those 4 ranked teams that went down this weekend. And listen to this. Kyle Whittingham always has a fantastic offense with the Utes. Many question, how good would they be this year after losing so many key starters from that magical run they had in 2019? The defense really tightened up in that second half. It was 21-10. Utah answered right back. The remaining possessions for Colorado went like this: punt, interception, punt, and then 3 straight turnover on downs. So that's unbelievable. Unbelievable job by Utah and Kyle Whittingham's defense. The Utes also forced 3 turnovers, and their run game finally found some life too. Ty Jordan, the freshman, 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 66-yarder to give Utah a 2-possession lead and really ultimately seal the deal late in the fourth quarter. So the Utes getting back to 500. Colorado still nothing to hang their head about, but this felt like a game they really were going to win with all the momentum they were carrying in, with all that they had to play for, with home field advantage. To blow an 11-point second half lead and lose by 17, super unfortunate, super disappointing. Going over to the Sun Belt, we've talked more about the Sun Belt this year than I think we ever have in Gridiron expert history, and I think we could say the same for the national analysts too. The major reason for that is because of what many say is America's team. Coastal Carolina, the 13th ranked Chanticleers, surviving a major scare at Troy to move to 11-0. Chanticleers defeat the Trojans 42-38 by getting a touchdown with 35 seconds left. Let me work you through how we got there first. You look at Coastal. They were 13-point favorites coming into this game. They had only had one conference game decided by 1 possession, and that was the 3-point road victory at Louisiana, a fellow Sun Belt team that's in the top 25. Chanticleers fresh off that thrilling victory at home over BYU. Many thought there could be a little bit of a hangover. Maybe there was. They led by 12 points with 5 minutes and 3 seconds left. It looked like the game was put away. But then Troy scored 15 points in a minute 28. A minute 28, they scored 15 points to take a 38-35 lead. But this, to me, is unbelievable. Grayson McCall, the freshman quarterback, a major reason for Coastal Carolina's success, a major reason for their dream season they're having, took that 38-35 deficit and said, I'd accept that challenge. I'm Grayson McCall. Do you know who I am? The guy looked like Tom Brady out there working a 2-minute drill. After they gave up that touchdown, trailing 38-35, McCall led a 5-play, 75-yard drive that lasted just 45 seconds, and McCall went 4 for 4 for 71 yards and punched it in to none other than Javon Hiley, who scored the game-winning touchdown with 35 seconds left, and Hiley finishing with 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Grayson McCall is the real deal, and he's going to be the reason that Coastal Carolina might win the Sun Belt Conference next week against Louisiana, and the reason that Coastal Carolina might be the Sun Belt favorite next year. Again, he's only a freshman. Unbelievable. And that drive, once again, proved why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Sun Belt, and I would say a top 25 quarterback in the country right now. So Coastal survives. They might not see much change in the rankings because only winning by 4 points on the road against a 500 Troy team is not all that impressive, but the dream is still alive for the Chanticleers. Moving out east, farther out east, Army-Navy. How about that, guys? I know this was not the biggest Army-Navy game we've seen in recent years. I know that it wasn't on everybody's radar because usually Army-Navy is the only game on that weekend. It's Army-Navy weekend. They had to share this weekend with a bunch of other teams. And I will say this was not the most exciting game that we've seen, but it was a classic. It was a fun one. Dense fog at West Point, the first Army-Navy game at West Point since 1943. And Army defeated the midshipmen, defeated their bitter rivals 15-0, posting their first shutout against Navy since 1969. So a lot of history was made on Saturday between these two rivals, one of the greatest rivalries to me in all of college football. And the dense fog that covered Michie Stadium just made it that much better. You look at this, guys, both these teams did not play traditional football here. These two power triple option teams, neither of them eclipsed 135 rushing yards. It was boring. It was a defensive slugfest. It was 3-0 for the majority of the game in favor of the Black Knights. But one turnover was committed in the entire game. One turnover, and that proved to be the difference maker. Navy fumbling the ball early in the fourth quarter, deep in their own territory. Army recovers, punches it in, 10-0. They get a safety, they get a late field goal, they win 15-0. But that fumble was the turning point for everything and gave Army that double-digit lead, that 2-possession lead, one that Navy, when that happened, you knew they were not going to be able to overcome. So a huge, huge win for Jeff Monken and Army. Unbelievable job he has done turning this Black Knights program around. They're 8-2 this year. They have Air Force next week, and that game against the Falcons will be for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, the winner between Air Force and Army taking home that trophy. So, again, one of the better trophies in all of sports, in my opinion. Army, Navy, and Air Force always playing for that. And right now, my early money would be on the Black Knights, a team that's very hot right now under Jeff Monken. How about we go over to the ACC real quick? This was one of the bigger surprises, I think, of Week 15. Maybe not necessarily the fact that North Carolina won, but the fact that North Carolina won by 36 points. The 17th ranked Tar Heels went into Miami, the 10th ranked team in the country, and won by 36 points. Miami, what are you doing? You complain and you complain and you complain that you're not getting enough respect. Your only loss is to Clemson. We deserve to be a top 10 team. Well, guess what? You got it. And you failed miserably. And look, we picked Miami. I own up to that. We picked Miami. I thought the Hurricanes at home, hungry for revenge after their loss to North Carolina last year, would show up and get the job done defensively. We said this was a battle between North Carolina's offense and Miami's defense. Which one was going to win that battle? We sided with Miami's defense, who for the majority of the season has played relatively well. They didn't show up. They didn't even get off the bus on Saturday. North Carolina putting up 778 yards of offense. That's just UNC alone. 778 yards of offense against the Hurricanes, the most that Miami has allowed in school history. 554 of those yards came on the ground. Miami allowed 554 rushing yards, 10.1 yards per carry. Michael Carter had 308 yards. Javonte Williams had 236 yards. The two running backs combined for 5 touchdowns. And this North Carolina defense held Miami to just 75 rushing yards on the day. It was all North Carolina from the start. They got down 3-0 and then rattled off 34 points like it was nothing. They dominated the time of possession. They dominated the line of scrimmage. It was a dominating performance for Mack Brown and his Tar Heels. And in Miami, they snatched that New Year's Six bowl game away from the Hurricanes. Right now, North Carolina is looking like the favorite to go to the Orange Bowl, something that Miami had possession of prior to this game. So again, I know North Carolina has been very inconsistent. North Carolina, they lost to Virginia. They lost to Florida State. They allowed over 50 points to Wake Forest, a Wake Forest team that just got murdered against a bad Louisville team. I get it. But this was impressive. We knew North Carolina had the talent, and they showed us that this Saturday. So all the credit in the world to the Tar Heels. Miami, you've got a lot to figure out. You've got a lot to figure out because that is not what a top 10 team looks like. And I think we all, please, need to stop hearing the demands for respect and the demands that they're better than they are, because you're not better than you are right now. I'm not trying to be harsh on the Hurricanes. But that is not just a bad game or mistakes were made. That was an annihilation. That was embarrassing. Manny Diaz and the Hurricanes got a lot to figure out. And if they finish on a sour note like they did last year, Diaz, I don't think he's gone, but his seat's going to be on fire going into 21. How about the Big Ten? Really quick, another snow game. One of the great things about Week 15 was all the different weather games. We had snow out in Colorado, had fog in West Point. We had more snow when Wisconsin took on Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. And the 16th ranked Hawkeyes murdered their rival in the Badgers 28-7. You remember when Wisconsin was like a top 10 team? Not anymore. Not anymore. What have they lost now? 3 straight? 28-7, the Hawkeyes beat Wisconsin. They held the Badgers to 56 rushing yards. And Graham Mertz, who looked like a superhuman in those first 2 games. First 2 games against Illinois and Michigan, he was held to 169 yards and an interception. Guy has not been the same since that horrible performance against Northwestern. I get he's just a freshman, still got a lot to learn. But maybe we gave him a little too much credit early on in the year against what were obviously much more inferior opponents. Amir Smith-Marset for Iowa, 7 receptions, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Without a doubt, the player of the game for the Hawkeyes, if you don't just want to give it to the entire Iowa defense. But this Iowa team is looking really, really dang good right now, guys. If they had not blown that 17-point lead to Northwestern, they'd be going to the Big Ten championship right now. They really would. And they're hot. One of the hottest teams in the country. Winners of 6 straight. They're 16th in the country right now. Will be a top 15 team by the time the committee releases their new set of rankings on Tuesday. Watch out for the Hawkeyes. I know they're not playing Ohio State. I know that honor goes to Northwestern. But this is a team that's going to be very dangerous in the postseason. 2 games left here, and we're getting to the one that everybody wants to talk about. What happened in the swamp? What happened to the 6th ranked team in the country? Let me set the scene for you. LSU, a team that just imposed a bowl ban on themselves, which I thought was ironic and funny considering LSU had a losing record, comes into the swamp to take on the 6th ranked team in the country, gearing up for next week's SEC championship against Alabama. The Florida Gators know that if they win this and beat Alabama, they go to the college football playoff. They are led by the Heisman favorite in Kyle Trask. They're 23-point favorites, have home field advantage, and they're going up against an LSU quarterback in Max Johnson, who's making his first career start. We know our defense is a little shaky, but have you seen LSU? How bad they've played? You see how bad they got beat by Alabama last week? We've got this in the bag. Ed Orgeron said not so fast. Guys, this was unbelievable. I think by far one of the most shocking results in college football this year. Maybe one of the most shocking results in college football that I've seen in the last 5, maybe 10 years. Because no one was giving LSU a fighting chance. Nobody. Nobody was giving them a chance. LSU allowed 609 yards of offense to Florida in this game. They were outgained by 191 yards. But LSU had something, ironically, that Florida didn't. And that was one of 2 things. One, discipline, and we'll get to that in a second. But they had defense. I know 609 yards sounds terrible, but they did force 3 turnovers. One of those was that wild sideline interception. Another was another interception, returned 68 yards for a touchdown. Obviously, that's a difference maker in a game that was decided by 3 points. The Tigers winning 37-34. The overlying play in this game, the one that will be talked about for years and years and years down in Gainesville, is what Marco Wilson did late in the game, under 2 minutes remaining in the game. What Marco Wilson did was inexcusable. It was immature. It was embarrassing. And it cost Florida the game. 3rd down and long for LSU. Florida gets the stop well short of the 1st down. And what does Marco Wilson do? Instead of trotting to the sideline like a normal person, knowing that with under 2 minutes left, LSU is going to punt the ball, and our quarterback, the Heisman favorite, is more than likely going to get us in field goal position, at least, where our kicker, Evan McPherson, who's been money this year, is going to line up, boot a field goal, win it for us. A game that was too close for comfort, but we're going to win and keep our playoff hopes alive. That's what he should have done. But Marco Wilson said, there's a cleat on the ground. Let me take it and throw it 20 yards down the field. For whatever reason, that's what he chose to do. That is what Marco Wilson chose to do. 15 yards on sportsmanlike conduct. LSU gets the 1st down, even though they were well short of it on that 3rd and 10 play. LSU gets all the way down there, and in the dense fog, another weather game, Cade York hits the longest field goal in LSU history, 57 yards, drilled it, 37-34. Kyle Trask still managed to get Florida in field goal position, where Evan McPherson lined up and missed a 51-yarder, just slightly to the left as time expired, giving LSU that 3-point victory in the swamp and ending Florida's college football playoff hopes. Even if they somehow beat Alabama next weekend, which is not going to happen, they will not make the college football playoff. And Florida fans, I know you're devastated. I know you're heartbroken. You can't blame this on McPherson because McPherson should never have been put in that situation. He never should have been put in that situation. Marco Wilson put him in that situation. Florida's defense that has been lackluster, missing in action for the majority of this season, put him in that situation. So I do not blame McPherson at all for missing that field goal. I don't blame him for Florida's loss. I really blame Marco Wilson, a guy that I think tomorrow or before the SEC championship should be booted off the team. It won't happen because there's no accountability in college football anymore, unfortunately. But what he did, what Marco Wilson did to his teammates, to the Florida program, to those fans, is inexcusable, embarrassing, and quite frankly, I hate to say it, I don't know if he cares. I don't know if he cares. Sometimes you get caught up in the heat of the moment. I don't know why he chose to throw that shoe, why he chose to throw that cleat. And imagine having to go around for years now saying, we didn't get a chance at the college football playoff because one of our guys threw a shoe. That's what you're going to have to say for a long, long time now. Sure, you're still going to the SEC championship, but even if you miraculously beat the top team in the country, you're not going to play for a national title because a guy threw a shoe. Marco Wilson, I don't know what he has to say for himself. He blocked a lot of people on social media. He turned off comments on social media because he knew what was coming after him. Angry fans and critics, and rightfully so. I know people make mistakes. People do make mistakes. But this was one of the worst mistakes in college football history. And again, it just blows my mind. Inexcusable. Inexcusable. Something should be done about this. I don't think it will. There's no accountability anymore. But what happened there still absolutely blows my mind. But outside of that, all the credit in the world to Ed Ogeron and LSU for going into the swamp, shorthanded, with a brand new quarterback in Max Johnson. Sure, he's seen the field at times. And Max Johnson going for 239 yards and 3 touchdowns in the victory. The defense, that's been horrible all year long. It's got torched by Mac Jones in Alabama. Picked off Kyle Trask a handful of times. Made the plays when they needed to. And got the win. Max Johnson and Cade York, the players of the game for LSU. And go ahead and throw Marco Wilson in there as well. Maybe a player of the game for the Tigers as well. A local hero now in Baton Rouge. And then finally, guys, our last game that we want to talk about. Maybe we should have saved that one for last, but still, one that certainly will shake up the playoff rankings and shake up the college football world. Our last game goes back out to the Pac-12. Number 15, USC, surviving their in-state battle, their in-state rival, UCLA, 43-38. The Trojans have finished the season undefeated. They have won the Pac-12 South. They clinched it when Colorado lost to Utah, but obviously a win's a lot better than a loss. They won the South. They will play Washington in the Pac-12 championship, but it nearly didn't happen. They nearly didn't win this game because the Trojans trailed 28-10 in the third quarter before waking up and outscoring the Bruins 33-10 the rest of the way. So what this tells me is USC has the talent to win the games. They have the talent to come back, to rack up the points, and the defense can play when they want to. Also shows me that UCLA is turning a corner. The fact they almost beat USC, the fact they've actually piled up a handful of conference victories this year, Chip Kelly is getting the results that he wants. People thought he was on the hot seat going into this year. Was not living up to the expectations. But I really think he's getting there. This UCLA program is getting there. And next year, hopefully under normal circumstances, he can put together a pretty solid year for the Bruins. Start building them up to start contending for a Pac-12 title. They fell just short in this one, blowing that 18-point lead, allowing Keaton Slovis to throw for 344 yards and 5 touchdowns, allowing Tyler Vaughns to put up 8 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown, and also committing 3 turnovers. That USC defense getting 3 turnovers in this one. So again, they know when they wake up, this USC defense can be good when they want to, and they were able to get the job done, stepping up, making the plays when it matters the most. They will certainly be the favorites to win the Pac-12 when they face Washington next week. And the Football Power Index is giving the Trojans a 50% chance to make the college football playoff. And that's preposterous. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen, even if they win the Pac-12 championship by 50 next week. But nonetheless, a huge win for Clay Helton, a much-needed win. Remember, we said in our Week 15 predictions, even if he lost this game and still made the Pac-12 championship, he might get fired. He needed to win this. He got it. He needs to beat Washington. That remains to be seen. And he needs to win the bowl game. But right now, I think Clay Helton's seat is cooling off just a little bit. The Trojans, again, showing why they're a top 15 team, certainly do not need to be slept on going forward in the championship game and in the postseason as well. So a wild Week 15 of college football, guys. A lot of stuff that we covered here. I know we spent a lot of time on LSU, Florida, because that was by far the most shocking and the biggest result of this week. A top 10 team that was absolutely in a position to contend for the college football playoff goes down. 2 top 10 teams, for that matter, go down. Florida and Miami. The Hurricanes, of course, were never in contention for the playoff. But a lot of shockers. That one. Florida, close calls with Coastal Carolina. A lot of big stuff happening this week, and we're going to see the results of that in our rankings coming out tomorrow, the playoff rankings coming out on Tuesday, and obviously where some of these teams wind up in their bowl destinations. And slowly but surely, those spots will start to fill up over the next week or so. Remember, Selection Sunday, a week from today. A week from today, we will know who is in the playoff. We will know bowl destinations for all the teams that choose to go to the postseason. And that's obviously where the fun is going to begin for us. So we're going to cover every single game in the postseason. So a wild Week 15, guys. We want to hear from you. What were your best moments, the biggest surprises, the biggest heartbreaks? Talk to us down in the comments. We want to hear from you. A wild weekend of college football, the last full week of the regular season. Conference championships coming your way, and we will have that content coming out later this week. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in that description below. We've got so much college football content for you. It's unreal. Our Bet Now promo code, our Patreon account, our expert picks, our newsletter. If you're a college football fan, everything down there is for you. So make sure to go check it out. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.